stop cursing at them, and they ended up sending me back to my cell. Unbelievably, the next day they summoned me again to tell me that for the time being, I was free. They kept my address book and said I'd hear from them soon. As the Gestapo had learned, Desroches refused to be intimidated by anyone. A willful, real-life female version of Indiana Jones, she told an interviewer many years after the war, "You don't get anywhere without a fight, you know. I never looked for the fight. If I became a brawler, it was out of necessity." When Christiane Desroches was little more than a toddler, her paternal grandfather had hoisted her on his shoulders and taken her to see the obelisk of Luxor, the pink granite monolith that looms over the vast Place de la Concorde in Paris. At that moment, her lifelong love affair with ancient Egypt began. In later visits to the obelisk, her grandfather told her a bit about its history. It was more than 3,000 years old, he said, created during the reign of Ramses II, one of Egypt's most powerful pharaohs, to stand guard outside a temple in the royal city of Thebes, now Luxor. In 1833, Egypt's viceroy had presented it to the King of France to mark France's close attachment to Egypt and its fabled ancient history, an association dating back to a military expedition led by Napoleon Bonaparte in 1798. The primary purpose of Napoleon's mission had been to annex Egypt to France, establishing his country as the dominant military power in the Mediterranean, and in the process undermining the interests of its arch-rival, Britain. But several dozen members of Napoleon's party had embarked on a very different quest. Experts in various fields, they included artists, engineers, linguists, cartographers, historians, mineralogists, botanists, and other scholars, all there to study Egypt and its people, both past and present. The military campaign was an almost immediate disaster. 1 month after the French arrived in Egypt, the British fleet, under the command of Admiral Horatio Nelson, defeated the French Navy at the Battle of the Nile. The scholarly expedition, however, proved to be a success beyond anyone's imagination. Its greatest triumph was to introduce France and the rest of the West to a complex, vibrant civilization that predated both the Romans and the Greeks. After their return to France, the scholars wrote more than a dozen books overflowing with engravings of the pyramids, obelisks, temples, sphinxes, colossal statues, and a multitude of other antiquities they had encountered during their stay in Egypt. In doing so, they revealed an exotic, mysterious land rarely before glimpsed by the outside world. The oldest nation-state in history, Egypt had been welded into a single country more than 3,200 years before the birth of Christ. Despite extended periods of internal strife and foreign attacks, it remained under the rule of a series of pharaohs, encompassing 32 dynasties, until its conquest by the Romans in 30 BC. The Egyptians' invention of the concept of a unified nation whose population shared a common identity was remarkable not only for its impact on the world, but also for its longevity. The pharaonic state, as originally conceived, lasted for 3 millennia, the Cambridge Egyptologist Toby Wilkinson observed. By comparison, Rome barely managed 1 millennium, while Western culture has yet to survive 2. As a child, Christiane Desroches had no interest in the arcane details of the history of ancient Egypt, or, for that matter, of the obelisk of Luxor. What fascinated her were the mysterious hieroglyphs engraved on the obelisk's 4 sides, particularly the representations of birds and animals. "Those images spoke to me," she said decades later. So did the Egyptian antiquities on display at the Louvre, also one of her favorite childhood haunts. There she studied brightly colored papyrus scrolls of Egyptians working in the fields. These funny men with their faces and feet in profile. The stick-like figures were strange-looking, to be sure, yet the scenes seemed familiar to her. Every summer she and her older brother spent several weeks with a great-uncle and aunt who lived in the countryside near Grenoble in the French Alps. The two spent much of their time playing with the children of local peasants and learning how to milk cows and harvest wheat and grapes.